Hi friends, welcome to Supreme Shutters, and this is our all-in-one session on the with respect to the Forest Conservation Acts in India. So in previous classes, we have seen Forest Acts which was enacted during the British colonial period. So we will see the post-independence development in this class, and one of the important acts is Forest Conservation Act 1980. It's very vital. Definitely, question will be asked either in the prelims or mains with respect to this act, because this act is going to be amended, which is in the process. The amendment is in the process with respect to the Forest Conservation 1980 only. So very vital class and very important class. Now we will see a short recap what happened in the British period. Then we will see the post independent development. Then we will see the Forest Conservation Act in this class. So what happened in the Forest Act with respect to the forest conservation in the British period? So historically, our forest has been under the control of or has been preserved by the conserved by the tribal peoples and the village peoples. You all know, because they actually worshipped the forest. I mean, for them, nature is a god. So they have worshipped and they have natural flora and fauna. They have worshipped and they have conserved them. So they took what they needed. That's all. So commercial exploitation not happen. Actually, commercial exploitation was not done by them. They took what they needed and they have conserved the forest. So when the British came to India in around 1850 or 1860s, they started the modernization projects, like development of railways happened, and telecommunications have been developed, telegraph lines have been laid. So for all these things, they need the forest produce, because timber is very important for the development of railways. So they want to have control on the forest land. However, tribals and village peoples, they acted as a hindrance to them. So they stopped the British from commercial exploitation of the forest. So for that they needed a strong law. I mean, for regulating these things they needed a law. So that's why they came with the Forest Act 1865. First ever act came 1865, and in that act, even the revenue official can declare any forest as a state forest or local forest. I mean, reserve forest. So once the forest is declared as the reserve forest, means then people can have claim on that particular area. So that much of impact as that law has created. So then 1878 Act, and then very important act, because 1878 Act only segregated the forest into three types. I mean, reserve forest, protected forest, and then village forest. So till this act, till now we are following these three types of forest, and these three types of forest, especially the reserve forest and the protected forest, it's under the government control. So no one can have a claim on the forest. So whatever the dense forest or brushwood or jungle, so that will come as a reserve forest, and whatever that doesn't cover under the reserve forest, that will be called as a protected forest. It will be government owned land. And then village forest, it will be developed and it will be used by the forest village people. So that's why it was named as the village forest. It's like a community development. So village forest is like a community development. So then what comes is a very important act is 1927, because for the first ever time, 1927 Act, for the first ever time, a forest settlement officer has been appointed. So when the same categorization, the three types of forest has been continued: the reserve forest and the protected forest and village forest. So with respect to the reserve forest, no one can have a claim on that any piece of land on the reserve forest. If anyone wants to claim, that means then they have to go, they have to register case with the forest settlement officer, and he will settle the claims with respect to those lands which came under the reserve forest. It's very important one. So reserve forest also paved the way for the leasings, like we are seeing now. So government is leasing the forest land. So it's like a starting point of everything happening now. So that much of impact has created that 1927 Act. So as usual, that reserve forest, whatever government declares as a reserve forest, that will be entirely under the control of the government. So in the protected forest, people will be used to take the forest produce. However, they have to pay duty. But in the case of reserve forest, that can be declared as a non-reserve forest also. Also, government can lease the forest, reserve forest, even the reserve forest, for the commercial production of timbers, everything. And then the last one is village forest. As we have already said, village forest will be maintained by the village people. So whatever the areas which are in the outer part of the protected land or protected forest or reserve forest, that will come under the village forest. So this is a very important provision, and you have to note down one important provision in the 1927 Act, because that was misused, and that was the main reason why this Forest Conservation Act 1980 came into force. So that is that state government. I mean that those times we will call it as a presidency. they can, or local government you can say, so they can declare a reserve forest as a non-reserve forest. So once a forest is declared as a reserve forest, means that can be undeclared as a reserve forest also. So that is one of the main provisions which was misused by the state governments, various state governments after the independence period, we can say. So now if you see 1947 we got the independence, and then 1950 our constitution came into force. But during the framing of the constitution, our leaders, constitution framers, they thought that environment will not have that much impact. So they didn't give a specific thought on the environment laws in India. They thought that what is already having, that is enough. So a state government, they will have the responsibility to protect the forest. So no separate protection needed under the constitution for environment, they thought like that actually. So that also created a confusion situation. So this is what happened in the during the independence. Now we will see why this Forest Conservation Act in 1980 came into force. So from the 1951 to 1975 period, I mean the 25-year period, what happened is that almost 40 lakh hectares of forest land has been diverted. So that is the main reason why this Forest Conservation Act 1980 came. Now you can see the slide now. The Forest Conservation Act, why it came into force. The reason behind that is state government, they have failed to protect the forest land. Almost 40 lakh hectares, 4.135 million hectares of forest land means 40 lakh hectares actually. So 40 lakh hectares of forest land has been diverted during this 25 period. That means 1951 to 1975 period. So this led to the destruction of forest in India, forest cover, and this led to the tremendous reduction of forest cover in India. So this is one of the important points, you have to note it down, and you should mention this point in the answer writing also. So this is why the Forest Conservation Act 1980 came, and before 1980 Act came, 42nd Amendment Act came. So during the Indira Gandhi Madam period, so that added two important provision. Article 48A, that was added in the Directive Principles of State Policy, and Article 51A was added as a fundamental duty of fundamental duty. So it was added as under the fundamental duty. So what Article 48A stated is, state shall make laws to protect and improve the environment. So under this one act only, our Forest Conservation Act 1980 and various other acts came, because 48A gives the power for the states to enact laws for protecting and improving the environment of, or forest of our country. So then the Article 51AG, so it says that every citizen has to protect and improve the natural environment, including the forest of our country. So these are very important thing. 1976 42nd Amendment Act, which came in the 1976. So this inserted these two articles, very important articles. So then only the Forest Conservation Act 1980 came. So before we go into the Forest Conservation Act 1980, we will see two multiple choice questions, because these are tricky questions. Then we will see the Forest Conservation Act and we will see the answer finally. So first see the question. Consider the following: horticultural crops, medical plants, palm oil trees, spices. Select the correct pairs for which the cultivation of these pairs are categorized as non-forest purpose under the Forest Conservation Act 1980. So here the options are given above. The question asks is which of the crops which are in the options, if those are cultivated, means they will be declared as a non-forest purpose. So horticultural crops, medical plants. So the pairs are given below. I mean 1 and 3. That means horticultural crops and the palm oil trees, and then medical plants cultivation. And then 1, 3, 4 means horticultural crops and palm oil trees and spices. Medical plants are left out. So these kind of pairs are given. So you have to answer these questions. However, most of the time we may answer wrongly. That I will say you in the conclusion why we may select the wrong answer. So the next question is, see the slide now. Consider the following about the Forest Conservation Act 1980. So prior approval from the central government need to be obtained by the state government to establish wireless communication in reserve forest for the management of forest. Then prior approval of central government is not needed for use of forest land belonging to the private ownership for non-forest purpose. Then the options are given below. See, the first option is with respect to if state governments wants to establish any wireless communication, even for the preservation of forest or conservation of forest, means they have to take approval from the central government. The next one is see, for the some of the lands may belong to the forest land may belong to the private ownership. So for them, they don't need to get the approval from the central government for non-forest purpose. I mean for cultivation or for using the non-forest purpose. So this is the option. So these are the options. Now we will see the provisions, important provisions in the Forest Act, Forest Conservation Act 1980. Then at the final stage we will see the answer. Okay, now let us see what is Forest Conservation Act 1980. So I have already told you one of the major reasons for the destruction of forest during after the independence period. That means 1951 to 1980 period, and what has been lacked in or what has been misused in the Forest Act 1927 is the provision, that important provision. That means state government has full power over the forest conservation. So any reserve forest can be declared as a non-reserve forest. So for leasing also they can leasing purpose also they can declare any forest as a non-forest purpose. So what happened in the 1951 to 1975 period means I will show you one example, important example. So Kudremukh, I mean most of the South Indian people would have been aware of that Kudremukh area. That was one of the hill station in the Chikmagalur, Karnataka. So Western Ghats, it was one of the very important ecologically sensitive area located in the Western Ghats. So that Kudremukh area was rich in iron ore. So that was leased for the iron ore extraction. The Karnataka government gave the lease to that state-owned company. So what happened is, so because of the leasing, that fragile environment was restricted to a larger level, and the environmentalists they went to Supreme Court, and finally mining was stopped there. And now that township developed during the iron ore mining period, that was called as a ghost town. You can see in the YouTube various videos were there. So this is one of the examples. So like this, what happened in the Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh, the hills which are very rich in the iron or mineral ores, that has been leased for the development. We can say development is needed because post independence we have suffered a lot because of the economic losses or economic drain. However, for the purpose of development, we have completely omitted the environment thing. So sustainable development, it became a question mark. So environmental degradation happened. So generational inequality was created. What environment has been for our previous generation, it was not for the next generation, not available for the next generation. The clean environment is not available for the next generation, especially the forest cover. So that is one of the reason. So many flora and fauna have become extinct because of these things. So the state government they focused on the development only. They didn't consider anything about the environmental conservation. So that is the main reason behind this forest conservation 1980. So for the main provision is central government approval is needed. So what needed? I mean central government approval is needed means state government they should take the prior approval from the central government for cessation of the reserve forest. That means if state government wants to announce one reserve forest as a non-reserve forest means without the approval from the central government they cannot announce a reserve forest as an unreserved forest. Then even the state government has the control over the forest land for any non-forest purpose. So for example they are going to use that forest land for the any non-forest purpose means that they have to take approval from the central government. Then leasing of a forest land. So I have already told state government will give leasing agreement for various infrastructure companies. So leasing of forest land means state government they cannot give the leasing without the approval from the central government. For that also they need the central government approval. Then cleaning of natural forest land. So forest land will be cleared for reforestation. So for this purpose, the forest land will be cleared. However, natural forest land, I mean naturally grown forest is there, and the reforestation needs to be done by the state government. So for that also they have to take approval from the central government. Then non-forest purpose. What under all the non-forest comes under the non-forest purpose means cultivation of tea, coffee, spices, rubber, palm oil plants, and medical plants. Even the medical plants is included. So these are cultivated means though they are greenish in nature. Like if you go for any hill station means say for example Darjeeling, you will see some kind of tea plantations will be there. It will be we will see this as a natural scenery like that we will see, but it's not natural. Those are all cultivated crops for the commercial purpose. So natural is different. Natural means you have to go inside a forest. That is natural. So this cultivation of these plants they are declared as the non-forest purpose. So next one is infrastructure works related to the conservation. So if state government is taking any infrastructure works related to the conservation of forest means, then that won't be called, or that won't be come under the, that not come under the non-forest purpose definition. So infrastructure works related to conservation of forest, that won't be considered under the that won't be considered as a non-forest producer. Then which of the areas it will apply? So it will apply to all the areas recorded as forest in the government records, and what under all declared as forest in dictionary. Definition of forest in dictionary. If that is if that area comes as comes under the forest definition in the dictionary means, then this will apply. So this is very important thing with respect to the Forest Conservation Act 1980. So now you can clearly see the state government power has been curbed, because during the post independence period 1951 to 1975, they have not done their job very cleverly. I mean, they have gone for the development, but they didn't consider about the conservation. So this is the reason why central government took control of the, with respect to the forest conservation. And you can see that reserve forest or any kind of forest purpose, non-forest purpose using or leasing, so everything approval is needed. That means central government approval is needed for the these things. So you can see the federal structure has been impacted by this. However, for some good reason, for the goodwill of nation, central government has to take this step. Otherwise, our natural wealth will be destroyed. So this is the reason. And we can see the two-stage approvals. So this is for the leasing. It's very important, leasing, because if any company is approaching for leasing means, if forest land needs to be leased means, then afforestation needs to be, or reforestation needs to be done. So for that, any approvals are done given by the central government in the two stage. That means one is in principle approval, another one is next one is formal approval. So in principle approval means any company which is going to destroy the forest or which is going to clear the forest means, they have to allocate a equivalent non-forest land. Also, they have to allocate funds for the reforestation or reforestation. So then only they can get the in principle approval. And next one is formal approval. So they have to allocate a equivalent non-forest land, and they have to allocate funds also for the development of or for the plantation of the trees. Then that complaints report from the state government is needed. That means that particular agency or that particular company has done that thing. I mean, they have got the equivalent non-forest land, and they have allocated funds for the development of trees means, then only formal approval will be given. So it is very important, because for the first time ever, a compensation has been done, or mitigation. You can see the mitigation. So whatever the forest land destroyed means an equivalent amount of non-forest land is coming to replace that. Yeah, we can say that it will take time. However, it is one of the mitigative measures you can see. So then section 4, very important one, rule making power. So any rules can be done under the 1980 Act, but that rule needs to be approved by the both the houses. That means Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and this needs to be notified 30 days. Any rules needs to be notified in the Parliament 30 days before it came into discussion. So both the houses should accept the rules. Then only it can came into force. And Forest Conservation Rules 2003, very important one. This came into force because of this rule making power only. I mean section 4, and this one we will see is at a separate video. Forest Conservation Rules 2003. So this is with respect to the Forest Conservation Act 1980. These are the important provisions with respect to that. Just remember that central government approval is needed for cessation of reserve forest, for using of non-forest purpose, for leasing, and everything. So, and what under all the categorized as the non-forest purpose, these also you have to take note of it. So this is a short format. So if a surprise question is thrown out to you means, you can recollect these points and you can make use of it in your answer writing. and it will fetch you very good marks. So next we will see whether this has impacted. I mean this Forest Conservation Act, whether it has created an impact. For that you need some data. So see the slide now. Forest Conservation Act, after that act came into effect. See, before this Forest Conservation Act, from 1951 to 1975 period, 40 lakh hectares of forest land has been diverted out. But after this 1980 Act came into effect, only 10 million hectares of forest land has been diverted, and that is also diverted because for the development, government has no other way. They have to give that forest land. However, mitigative measures have been taken, like creation and maintenance of compensatory afforestation. So these have been done. So these have impacted the forest conservation very much very much largely than the previous acts. So this is how the Forest Conservation Act 1980 has achieved its purpose, we can say. So the objective has been somewhat achieved, we can see. So now we will see the question slide again. First question is consider the following: horticultural crops, medical plants, palm oil trees, spices. So here you can see all the four, if they are cultivated, means they will be categorized as the non-forest purpose. So I have already told you, you may get some tricky, or you may choose the wrong answer, because why I am saying is all of us, we may think that cultivation of medical plants, it's like for a good purpose only. So that may not be considered as a non-forest purpose. We may think like that. As a common knowledge, we may 90% we may think like that, and we will select the answer as 1, 3, 4 only. So this way I'm saying again and again, you need to know the provisions exactly, then only you can choose the correct answer. So for medical plants, even if they are cultivated, means for the good purpose or goodwill purpose, means they will be considered as a non-forest purpose only. Then you see the last another question: consider the following about Forest Conservation Act 1980. So prior approval from the central government needed to be obtained by state government to establish wireless communication in reserve forest for the management of forest. Then prior approval of central government is not needed for use of forest land belonging to the private ownership for non-forest purpose. So here also we may select the wrong answer, because approval, basically the 1980 Act, Forest Conservation Act, is about the approval to be obtained from the central government. So that means central government will have the full control over the state government with respect to the approval. However, you see in this case the state government is establishing the wireless communication for conservation of forest purpose only. That then they need not take they need not they need not to be take the approval from the central government. That means they can do that activity without taking approval from the central government. So because they are developing this wireless communication for the conservation of forest only. So that is why prior approval is not needed. So the answer is the first option is wrong. The next one, prior approval of the central government is not needed for use of forest land belonging to the private ownership. So even the forest land belongs to the private ownership, they cannot use it for the non-forest purpose, because any non-forest purpose, say for example a private owner, they want to cultivate tea. That means they want to have plant the tree crops by clearing the forest, means they cannot do that. They have to take approval from the central government, then only they can they can continue with that activity. So this also we may think as a common sense, we may think that so see, private ownership of forest land means then they no need to take the approval from the central government now. So like that we may think. So they need to take approval from the central government for non-forest purpose, I mean for cultivation of a non-forest purpose. So the option is G here, neither one nor two. This is with respect to the Forest Conservation Act 1980. In the so the after very I mean some kind of delay happened. Sorry for that. However, I will try to finish what and all have been planned earlier. So go through the previous session. The link has been given below. Then you come to see this Forest Conservation Act. I hope this is very useful for you, and do comment and subscribe our channel and like, and I need your comments, then only I can improve myself. So this is with respect to the Forest Conservation Act 1980, and do follow us on Instagram and Telegram, and thank you very much.